Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, or if you're new, welcome. We're going to get back into more Emily Reed drama. We're back for part 2 of Q&A 2 of Mr. Snowflake and Beck Reacts. So let's get into it and answer the rest of the questions, shall we?
Hi Beck. Amber had so many rules and boundaries for what you could and couldn't do. Did you ever put your foot down on any occasion and tell her, no, I'm not doing that again?
I did put my foot down sometimes when it came to seeing my family. That was the most important thing to me, and I'd deal with the repercussions afterward. There were many times outside of that where I said no, but saying no would always start an argument, no matter what it was that she was asking me to do. The arguments would become so overwhelming and manipulative that I'd almost always end up giving in to her demands.
Now, typically, I don't agree with ultimatums because they are a form of emotional abuse. You're using your partner's emotional connection to you as a way of getting something out of them or getting them to do something they don't want to necessarily do. I just don't agree with them ever. That being said, I think for Beck, I could give them a little bit of leeway when they put their foot down and saying, look, either I do this, go see my family, or I get this because, they deserve it, or I'm leaving. That being said, I don't really think it would work on Amber because Amber doesn't really care for Beck in that way, so Amber probably would have just moved on.
Beck, what did a typical day with Amberlynn look like when you both moved to the apartment? What did Amberlynn Reed normally wake up? What time did Amberlynn Reed normally wake up, and what was her routine? I'm assuming it was wake up, eat a bunch of crap, and then play Choosy all day.
Amber would almost always wake up in the afternoon between noon and 3. The minute she woke up, she was on her phone and usually looking at DoorDash, checking socials, YouTube, etc. The rest of the day always depended on what she was into at the moment, usually doing separate things while in the same room. We did play Choosy at the apartment, but Choosy was played the most often whenever we lived with Eric and Ricky. I've read a lot of comments talking about how Choosy may have been a way to isolate me and keep me busy doing something meaningless with her for long periods of time, and I think they were right. It didn't leave much time for me to walk away and talk to my friends.
I think I did mention it in another video that I perceive Choosy as a way of kind of holding power over people because, let's face it, it's a very boring thing. And if you have to do that with hundreds, if not thousands of items, and it takes days, like that wears someone down mentally, emotionally, hell, even physically. And it's like, why on earth would you want your partners to do that, even if you perceive it to be a fun thing? Like you would have to know that they don't enjoy that type of stuff. And with Amber, even if you're not interacting with her like one-on-one, as long as you're in the room with her, she'd probably get some sort of gratification out of that because, like, let's face it, Amber is so desperate for a relationship. Even if it's a miserable one, it's still a relationship at the end of the day.
Beck, did you ever sleep in the guest bedroom? Why was that the only room you were allowed to decorate?
We slept in the guest bedroom every day. Amber didn't like the new mattress or bed frame that we'd bought for our decorated room. She bought it, then never spent a full night on it. As for decorating, Amber told me before we moved into the apartment that when we got our own place, she would be the one to decorate everything and that I wouldn't have a say in any of that. When I asked why not, she said, well, Destiny never cared that I decorated. I think the only reason I was allowed to decorate the guest room was because that's where all of my belongings went anyway.
I 100% felt that to my core. Like, I have had partners in the past tell me that I'm not allowed to have any sort of input, and even if I do, they will acknowledge it, think about it, quotations, and then just toss it out and do the complete opposite anyway. And it's like, I'm not over here asking for extremes or anything, just adding a little bit of personality into a home instead of making it look like an IKEA show home with nothing, just no personality, no color, no life. Everything is cold, grey, white, and black. It is so ugly. And yet for some reason, I was expected to pay for half the rent, half the bills, and half the shit that comes into the house that I had no input into.
I know she didn't like my style, but she never asked for my opinion or found out what kind of decorations I would like anyway.
Not to mention, I also believe that it's a form of abuse because, the most safest and most comfortable place for a person to be is within their own home. And if you don't have your own personality put into it, like no input whatsoever, you don't even feel like it's your own home. You feel like you're a guest who just happens to be paying bills. So how are you supposed to feel comfortable in a place that isn't even really your own?
I know everyone has seen what my bedroom looked like, but I do have a much different style for living rooms and public spaces in a home.
Beck, you've mentioned that each time you previously tried to leave, Amber would make promises to change and that things would get better. What exactly did she admit to needing to change? And what exactly did she promise would get better? That's such a good one.
Amber has fully admitted when she was in a relationship with Beck, and even after the relationship itself, like she had no idea what she could personally change about herself in order to make the relationship work. So I am going to say probably the most generic shit, and if anything, probably just her weight. Like, that would be the only thing I can really think that Amber would kind of bring up to say that she would fix.
Did she make any authentic attempt to change as promised? If so, how long did this renewed honeymoon period typically last before she reverted back to coercive, controlling, demeaning, it's too early for me to read those words in a row, and or otherwise abusive words and behaviours? Did she tend to escalate these behaviours to further wear you down and thus discourage you from another attempt at leaving? Your sharing as much detail as is comfortable may help many others recognise a similar pattern in their or narc abusive relationships. I'm getting a lot of messages saying that Beck's helping them. Yeah, what was she promising to change? It'll get better, I'll change. Change what exactly?
I'm going to take a wild shot on the dark and say that Amber didn't know what the issue was, so she only agreed to fix whatever Beck would bring up within the breakup occurring. So if the issue was her hygiene, alright, I'll fix that. If the issue was her weight, alright, I'll fix that. If the issue was her attitude, alright, I'll fix that. Amber is only going to fix or agree to fix whatever issue was occurring at that particular time, because Amber doesn't see them as problems. She sees the people not accepting her issues as a problem. It's not my actions, it's your reaction to my actions that is the problem, and then you need to fix that, because why should I work on myself? You should accept me, but you also need to accept the fact that I'm not a good person.
The promises to change would always depend on what my reason for wanting to leave was about at the time.
I called it, because Amber does not see herself as a problem. It is the reaction that is the problem.
There were a lot of times that Amber promised me she would get therapy in order to change her behavior. She never continued going after the first few appointments, so no progress was ever really made. She promised that she would do better on her diets, that she would help to clean more, that she would be less strict. Her attempts to change were never really authentic. After each promise, she'd try for a few days, she'd be nicer and demand me do less for her, but then gradually go right back to her old ways. The less mobile she became, the more mean and controlling she would be. She became more confident in the way she treated me and in her belief that I would never leave. It continued to escalate until the end of the relationship. She also knew that the less independent she was, the more she needed me, the more bad I would feel for her, and the less likely I would be to leave.
Which does reinforce my point that Amber is going to go after people who are more empathetic and who are more caring, which on average is women. Like, that's the reason why Amber calls herself a lesbian, even though she entertains men. It's because, on average, women are more empathetic and are willing to overexert themselves in order to help someone else. And that's just, I mean, it's just a reality.
Hey, Beck and Snowflake? That's Mr. Snowflake to you. Oh, you said Mr. Snowflake, right. Do you think Twinkie and Wasabi are being cared for properly by Amber, since she has no one to help her? Well, Rarity just went missing under Amber's watch. The state of Twinkie, nails are back to being long. Amber's trying to prove she's looking after the pets. Oh, look at me brushing Wasabi. Can you look at Wasabi when you're doing it instead of eye banging the camera?
It's kind of the main reason why I cut out the majority of the content with Foodie and Amber with their pets, because they're just terrible pet owners. And like, Foodie can try and pretend like she's a good pet owner, but she isn't. Like, her beezes might be low IQ, but the reason why the majority of them defend her when it comes to pets is because she doesn't allow any criticism. And as soon as someone tries to criticize her about what she has done to her pets in the past, she deletes the comments. So nobody's really going to get the full picture unless you've been there to see it. And thankfully, like, there are people who record it and show it. And the same thing with Amber too. Like, it's not that hard to take your animals to get their nails clipped. It's not that hard to get them immunized. It's not that hard to get them desexed. It is not that hard to get your animals, you know, their fur maintained and cleaned. You can brush it, you can clean it, you can wash them, you can get people to groom your pets for you. You're able to get your pets microchipped. Like, do the basic necessities to look after your pets in case something does happen, like Rarity.
From my experience, she does not properly take care of her animals when living alone. I haven't seen Amber or Twinkie in Wasabi in years, so there's no way for me to know for sure if she truly takes him to see the vet regularly, grooms him, or cleans the litter boxes enough. After hearing about Rarity, it does worry me. I can't say for sure.
I honestly don't think for a second that Amber is properly maintaining those animals or their litter boxes, because I used to be morbidly obese, 313 pounds to Amber's 500 and something pounds. I'm also nearly a foot taller than Amber because I'm 179 centimeters, so I'm about 5'10", 5'11", I think, something like that. Amber's 5 to 5'4", changes every now and then. So if I was in pain doing 1 or 2 kitty litter boxes, I can imagine how bad Amber must feel when she's doing the exact same thing. Like, there's no way in hell she's probably maintaining them.
I wonder if you could give us more insight into your family's intervention. When they started saying red flags and when they started to warn you about the relationship.
My family saw red flags from the beginning. My mom, my sisters, and their then husbands all quickly had arguments with Amber. My family is not perfect, and some of them have very, very different opinions from mine, and not all of them support me, but my sisters and my mom did, and were nice to Amber. Amber would go out of her way to stir the pot and start arguments with them. My family pointed out that Amber was controlling, that I was seeing them so much less, and voiced their concerns about my well-being while caring for her to the extent that I did.
I also personally believe that Amber is jealous. One, because, attention is getting taken away from her and Beck is spending it elsewhere with her family. But also, Amber sees female family members, especially mothers, as competition. And I say that because there are, the boy moms that find, their sons' girlfriends as competition. It's kind of like the same concept, just in reverse.
The day of the intervention, my family asked to meet me at a park, and I had no idea why. This all happened during the bad times, so I don't remember everything that was said. My mom was the one who planned it. She talked to my sisters and said that she wanted to meet up with me away from the rest of the family and talk about her concerns. My mom and sisters all met me at the park and sat down with me. Mom felt like I was being held hostage by Amber and being kept from seeing the family.
Well, your mom was right.
She saw the state my mental health was in because she had never seen it become so bad before. Because of that, she was really concerned for my safety and just wanted me to leave her in the situation I was in.
Crazy. Can you tell when Hamber is fake crying? I can.
There is kind of 2 forms of fake crying that Amber does to try and manipulate people into feeling bad for her. There's the fake over-exaggeration, crocodile tears, where she's constantly wiping her face and there's nothing there. But there's also the hollow crying, where she will cry on a whim, usually when she's done something wrong or she doesn't want to take accountability, and she'll cry as a way trying to make people feel bad for her and kind of lighten up on the aggression or the accountability, them criticizing her.
If so, what is her biggest tell? Love to see you thriving in a relationship with a beautiful woman. Your iceberg videos have been so fun. It'll be interesting when you, Beck, when you get all the Amber stuff out and then it's just passion project after passion project. Yeah. Anyway, can you tell when Amber is fake crying?
When Amber actually cries, there are real tears. She sobs, her shoulders shake, and her voice squeaks. I don't think I've ever seen her genuinely cry on camera. In her last response to Beck video, her eyes are dry, and she changed her voice a little to sound emotional, but you can tell it's not real. She did that a lot while filming, then would stop the video and turn around like nothing had happened.
I also do kind of want to mention something that happens when I see people cry, which is I typically go completely still, almost motionless. And it's not just physically, it's mentally and emotionally too. I don't have any thoughts when I see someone cry. I'm almost I'm completely frozen. And when I see Amber and even my brother cry, who is very narcissistic too, I know it's fake. And you get almost just repulsed. It's an instinctual reaction you have when you know something is kind of dangerous, and just your entire body goes into this fight or flight instinct, but instead it's complete 100% repulsion at the idea of them crying. Your body physically just gets sick at seeing them cry. And I know that I can't be the only one that has that type of reaction. I know other people must feel it too.
Also, thank you. I can't wait to do more videos showing my interests in things I love.
What is Ayla really diagnosed with? Yeah. Anything? Or would she just come back and go, I got diagnosed with all this? I Don't know why she's obsessed with being diagnosed with stuff.
While with me, the only thing she was ever diagnosed with besides cancer was bipolar disorder. Eric, Amber, and I all visited the same doctor who diagnosed all three of us with bipolar disorder and prescribed us all the same medication based on a questionnaire the doctor had given us. The doctor eventually took me off that medicine and said my diagnosis may have been incorrect due to my reaction to the medicine. Amber stopped taking it and seeing the doctor altogether. I continued seeing that doctor for years. I don't know about any other official diagnosis she's ever received, and there were no more given while with me.
Yeah, no, I don't think that therapist should be a therapist, because how are you going to take three separate people all in the same meeting at the same time and go, all right, you all have the exact same thing? I don't think that's, yeah, no, they shouldn't be a therapist.
Oh yeah, because she's nuts. Was there ever a moment to where you were in so much fear from Amber Lynn that you wanted to call for help via police, family, etc.? That's a sad one. Yeah.
I wouldn't say that I ever felt the need to call the police. I didn't feel physically threatened by Amber, but I did sometimes feel like calling for my family, either wanting to just talk to them or needing to run to them to be by their side for emotional support.
Hearing Beck say that is just, it is so sad, because I've been in that position where it's like, you are just so mentally and emotionally drained that you need to just go and have an emotional chat with someone, cry, break down or something, because you know that if you keep bottling it up, it's going to leave some permanent damage on you, mentally, emotionally, hell, even physically.
Did ALR put times on more things than what you've already told us? How many other things did she do that with?
She would put timers on cleaning, but I kind of found that helpful sometimes. She'd sit in one spot and clean the areas that she could reach from her seat while I cleaned everywhere else. If I watched a movie in the living room with friends or did anything outside of the room she was in and she didn't plan on joining, she'd always ask how long the movie was or what I'd be doing and for how long. I don't know if she'd set a timer in those instances, but I would get a text right around the time I estimated asking if I was done and when I'd be coming back. She'd set a timer for lint picking, back brushing, and massages, and any activities we did together. She'd set a 10-minute timer while we watched a movie. When that timer would go off, she'd spend 15 minutes on her computer. Then she'd either go back to the movie for 10 more minutes or pick another activity and go back to the movie after. Sometimes it was reading, journaling, or choosing. If I was in the bathroom, there would be no timer, but she would text, call, or yell to tell me I'm taking too long.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Like, Amber can't follow her own schedules or plans, but she can do it for everyone else. And if they don't follow through, she'll remind them. But, like, how are you going to set timers for movies, for, journaling, or video games, or music, or all this crap that you have to do, but then say that you have adult ADHD, or you've been diagnosed with adult ADHD? Because I have plenty of friends with ADHD diagnosed, and I can assure you they can set 100 different timers, and they're not going to follow it because that shit don't work.
Beck, do you know anything of the Rain and Petals? Oh, we just talked about that. Pain and Rattles. So, the Rain and Petals eavesdrop story, or the accusations of SA Amber has made towards people. Did she ever come clean, confide, or discredit her own stories? I don't know how much you've seen. You probably haven't seen all of that stuff, actually. The SA stuff, claiming that she's been SA'd by so many people.
The Rain and Petals eavesdrop is so ridiculous. The only instance that she told me about was with Casey. She never admitted to me that what she said was a lie and never mentioned any of the other instances that I'd heard mentioned in your Mr. Snowflake's videos.
I don't think Amber will ever come out and admit it was a lie. Like, I don't believe that she'll ever do that. I do, however, believe that Amber is going to contradict herself multiple times to the point where no one will believe her because she already has.
She would bring up throughout the relationship that she didn't understand why viewers invalidated her experience, and she would tell stories about things Casey had supposedly done to her. I believe now that Casey is another victim of Amber, and I understand why there's so much doubt about everything Amber says.
Because a lot of people have gone through those situations before. They have either been the victim or they have been someone who has been lied about and have been falsely accused before. So they're going to be very emotionally invested in these stories, and if your story changes, they're going to be hypercritical about it because they are emotionally invested. And if they have not been a victim, they know someone who they deeply care about who has been a victim.
What show/shows did Amber Lynn say she was going to be on? Oh yeah, I was always talking about some shows contacted her, this show's contacted her. What shows did Amber Lynn say she was going to be on?
There was a show called Too Large that contacted her and wanted her to be on the show, but they wanted her to move to Atlanta and to follow a strict diet. She told me that she rejected the show because she didn't want to move and was afraid that she wouldn't be able to post YouTube videos while on the show. I also vaguely remember her getting an email about being on My 600-Pound Life, but that could have been totally fake. We weren't sure.
The funny thing is, Amber says that she would be a success story and like she'd be able to follow through 100% without fail. And it's like, my dude, 11 years of the same bullshit, and you really think you're going to be a success story on My 600-Pound Life? Not a chance in hell.
Was Amber secretive with her phone during your relationship? Infamously cheated on Emily with Erica and was still talking to Abby while with Emily.
When we first started dating, she mentioned that she received a lot of nudes from people on Snapchat. I told her that it made me kind of uncomfortable, and she told me that she changed the settings or something so that it wouldn't keep happening. But I never looked to see if that were true.
Me personally, I am an open book, so if you want to go through my phone or my laptop or my social medias, I have no problem, but it really comes down to building up that level of trust. Like, after several years, if I have not built that level of trust with you and you still don't trust me, I'm probably just going to break up with you and move on, because you're never going to trust me otherwise, and I will never marry someone who doesn't fully trust me. And I date with the intention of marrying someone because I don't want to waste my life spending, 5, 10, 15 years with someone and not be married to them. Like, I don't really see a point of just dating for the sake of dating.
Amber was really secretive with her phone. She would take mine and go through it all the time, but told me that she didn't want me looking through her phone because she had private journals and insisted she needed her privacy.
Right.
Oh, you can fuck all the way off, Amber. There is no way in hell you demand someone else's phone, but then also demand your own privacy. Piss off.
So that's the audience's one. There's loads. There's more. I could do an endless series on this, but there's enough for another part. But I've done a few as well, because there's a few I want to know, and with the victims that'll tie up a few things. Anyway, what's this one? Reaction channels. Which reaction channels did she hate the most? I wasn't around then, so sadly it won't be me. It's the ankle now.
Honestly, at this point, it's like a badge of honor to have either Foodie or Amber to openly hate you. Like, I would be happy with either of them or both of them.
How often did she talk about them? I hope it's a yes.
Karina Kaboom, Willow Davis, CXNT, Charlie Gold, Kicking Geese, and Apathetic Facts. She talked about the channels daily and watched every video that came out about her. She loved to say that none of them would have a channel or be making any money without her. She'd proudly tell me about her flagging videos of theirs. It was annoying to me that she was so obsessed because it was such an unhealthy obsession. She would sometimes cry about the things the channels would say, calling them bullies, and saying it was due to fat shaming.
Honestly, I've made a couple jokes about Foodie and Amber, and yes, they're both morbidly obese, but it has nothing to do with their morbid obesity. Like, yeah, I talk shit about it, but at the end of the day, there's plenty of criticism to talk about, and even if they were skinny, I would still talk about them. I just find them as just a form of entertainment, really. Like, that's all it is to me. Their life is a shit show, and I enjoy watching it. Kind of like reality TV, just low budget.
This one comments. How long would you be checking comments on her videos, and did that ever annoy you? How often she would talk about them? Look what this person said. Look what it.
Me personally, it kind of depends, because when I post videos, they're usually very late at night, and so when I go to work the next day, I'll answer them throughout the day while I'm kind of just doing stuff that doesn't require my attention, where if I'm at home, I'll answer them straight away. So it doesn't honestly take me that long. The most annoying part is that sometimes they'll put, like, YouTube will put a filter on the comments, so I had to change the filters and hope the comments will show up. But even then, some of the comments that I do have never show up. So if you guys did post a comment and I don't answer it, it's not because I refuse to acknowledge it, it's simply because I can't see it.
She would spend an hour at a time scrolling through her YouTube comments on and off daily. She would also cry about her YouTube comments and talk about how detrimental it was to her mental health, but would go out of her way to read them along with posts on Reddit, Kiwi Farms, and Facebook.
I mean, that in itself isn't even really narcissistic. Like, a lot of people want to know what people say about them, and even if it's bad, your curiosity eats at you until you check it out, but just don't do it. A lot of people are going to hate you for the sake of hating you, but if you're a bad person, they're going to hate you even more.
Hygiene. All right. Hygiene. Well, yeah, I think you've been respectful about Amber's lack of hygiene. However, I mean, I wouldn't be. Especially not after her accountability video. I'm sorry you thought you were abused. Yeah, man. However, I think it's a valid thing to discuss because it must have affected you. It must have had a negative effect on you. Being around somebody who refuses to clean properly. That would have done my mentals in. That wouldn't have been good for me. Was it something you tried to talk to Amber about? And would she get defensive if you did bring it up, or did you not bring it up but wanted to?
I would talk to Amber about her hygiene. I tried to convince her to cut her hair to make maintenance easier on both of us, and she refused. I told her to stop wearing the chokers when the dark spots appeared behind her neck, and she told me it wasn't a big deal and that it was fine. I'm not going to go into detail about the smell, but it was brought up to me a lot by everyone around me, and I did have to talk to her about it. Her reaction was usually to blame her depression and how she struggled to clean by herself. Eventually, I stopped asking her to help herself because it wasn't going to happen. It did get a little better when we moved into the apartment with the large walk-in shower, but I did still stand in the bathroom and help until the day we broke up.
Which kind of leads me to believe that every single partner after Beck, like, must enjoy it to some extent. Like, they enjoyed the larger things in life.
I see a lot of abuse when it comes to you and Amber. People often mention financial abuse, which is not something I immediately think of when I think of abuse, but it's still a form of abuse. I always think of physical or emotional, but then I see people talking about financial. I'm like, oh yeah, of course, that's one as well. That's a big one as well.
Financial abuse is one of those situations where you don't really think about it unless you've either been in the situation or you know someone who's been in that type of situation. It's one of those more less known aspects of abuse, but it really is. Same thing with like sleep deprivation, and also what I was talking about earlier with not being comfortable in your own home. Those are also, you know, types of abuse that a lot of people do employ in order to abuse other people, but they don't really get spoken about often.
Can you think of any big examples of Amber abusing you financially?
Amber constantly held over my head that she was the only one with an income. During almost every argument, she would tell me how she pays all the bills and buys all the food, as if that gave her a right to control me, and as if I contributed nothing to her life. I would tell her each time that if she felt that way, I'd gladly go back to working. She'd quickly say, no, I don't want you to do that. And she didn't. She couldn't handle being apart from me for any extended period of time. She needed a caretaker, and that was already my full-time job, and a thankless one. Despite that, and doing what I could to contribute by also being in the vlogs, when she knew full well that I didn't want to be, in order to earn the home I was living in her mind, she would also be sure to take away any money I'd get from other sources. I mentioned this before, but even being seen collecting change would trigger her to question whether I was saving up to leave her. When my mother passed away, me and my siblings received a portion of a settlement from my dad's job that ended up being around $5,000 to $6,000 for each of us. I was not allowed to keep it. She told me that the money had to go into paying the bills and my half of the rent.
So this is what people have been talking about for the past week. Jesus Christ, that is disgusting.
My mom had plans for when she would have received that money before she passed away. Getting it was bittersweet, and I would have liked to use it in some way to honor her. She wouldn't have wanted Amber to have it, and it really hurt, but she took it anyway. When I told her that I would like to do something with the money, she dismissed it and treated me like I owed it to her, and it wasn't my choice.
No, absolutely not. Like, that would have been the line in the sand. If you take my money that was given to me from my mother passing and you spend it on yourself, anything that you have of any sort of value, I am taking and I am selling. And if you think I'm going to feel bad about it, absolutely not. I'm going to replace the money you took, and you're getting the hell out of my house.
She said that I couldn't have it because the bills needed to be paid, even though I knew that she was making enough from YouTube to cover bills and rent with no problem.
Yeah, thanks for doing this, Beck. Not a super long one. Actually, I don't think it was. Oh, no, it wasn't. Like I said, there's another part there if you want to do it, but there's no rush because this must be a bit draining. But I'm hoping it's good for you. Like I've said before, it was good for Casey. I was really sad about the Casey interview, but he said, no, it was good. It's good to get this out. I suppose you do after a while, don't you? You suffer all this abuse, and then after however long, you think, right, I'm ready to share my story.
Dude, honestly, at this point, like, screw the douchebag YouTubers that want to do celebrity YouTubing boxing matches. Like, Amber and Beck in a ring. I will save the money up myself, and I will make sure that whoever wins gets $6 grand, and my money is going on Beck.
Those were all really good questions, and I hope I was able to give you guys some interesting answers. I want to thank everyone once again for watching this video, and to Mr. Snowflake for putting it all together, and of course everyone who asked me questions. This is the second Q&A we've done, and I'll link the first one in the description below. Maybe if you guys like this one too, we could do more of these in the future. I'm so grateful for being able to tell my story and for everyone willing to give it a listen. I hope to see you all in the next video. Bye.
These videos are kind of bittersweet for me. Like, I don't like hearing about the abuse they went through, but at the same time, I am genuinely happy that they are doing much better and they are able to kind of monetize their story and be able to make money off of a tragedy they had to go through. And the shit that they did have to endure is crazy. Like, taking your mother's inheritance. I honestly just feel so sorry for them, and I do hope they can get into a point where once they tell their story, the people that kind of want to stay, like, just want to stay and they don't bring up Amber, and they can create a community around just enjoying Beck and the stuff that they enjoy. But thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoy, and hopefully get to see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.